who are.
What is it that we have to help each other become more aware of? Where are we out of balance?
I want to answer that twofold. One, back on the imbalance from what Marie was sharing. Another piece of the imbalance is how we treat the elderly. You know, we need to shift that big time. I'm all for seniors choosing to be in these residences where they're all together, if that's what they're choosing. But often the elderly, particularly those that are not as well, are housed away in these institutions that do not serve them at all. It's a place to go to die. And then to tip into your question, I can feel it shouting up from my heart, and that's, we don't have to do it alone. Which I can feel it vibrating in my body. Goes back to those beginning times when we were hidden away in the forest, working alone in solitude to hide out from whatever was not wishing our medicine to be visible. And I think that lives in us so strongly, the visibility, or not wanting to be visible, and doing it in a solitary practice is so ingrained in ourselves and in our psyche that our ability to reach out and ask a sister to hang with us, to hold us up, to support us, to see the vision with us, to magnetize other sisters that are in alignment with that vision, that collective movement. It's like a mantra. I don't have to do this alone. And find the substance within our hearts and our bellies to reach out and say, I need assistance. Or are you with me on this? Can we collaborate, or can we create something bigger together? I need a break from my children. Can you sit for them for the weekend? I've been caring for my elderly mother for 6 months and I'm worn out. I don't know how I'm going to get out of bed tomorrow. I need assistance. Like, the list goes on. We don't have to do it alone.
We have to ask for what we need then.
Yes.
And that's where feminine voice has been diminished.
Yes.
Of you just figure it out on your own. You don't necessarily ask. You have to just do it on your own.
And our voice needs to be heard. It's like I have this vision of standing at the rooftop and just shouting out, I can't take this anymore. This is not the way. Return to nature. Return to the heart, and just call people back, because we know that every human being longs for the depth of what the heart yearns for. Whether they're listening or not, that seed is planted there. It's part of the evolutionary impulse that it is planted there, so that eventually we'll wake up in our journey. But if we allow our message to be strong and rooted and clear, then it begins to resonate. Because if I put it in terms of sound, if we pluck the G chord of a violin, it'll start every string instrument, every G string vibrating. So in our own radiance, we're the vibrating G string.
Yeah, I love that.
I didn't mean it to come out that way, but it did.
That was perfect.
We're the vibrating string. We're the vibrating song.
We're the vibrating
so that
spot.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it happens in circles, right?
Right.
When the Shakti is so full.
Yeah.
it wakes it up in every person in the circle without saying a word. So I often say, you don't have to roar to be heard.
So we know that we're not going to change the systems. It
Oh,
starts with us. And
yes.
so, Marie, do you want to add anything on where you feel what we can do to create more balance?
Yes, definitely. I just also want to say, I totally identify what you were saying, Hualani. I have exactly the same vision. And I think this feeling of wanting to shout from the rooftops, it's okay to ask for help, is exactly what women in this day and age need to hear, and what they all actually are too scared to say and to shout. And it's to regain a balance, we need to change this reality amongst women, especially right now, that and I've always had this sense, and it's growing stronger the older I get, that we are not meant to be isolated islands, suffering on our own, proving to ourselves we can do everything because we are women. Yes, we are strong, but what if we could actually use our strength to change something in this world? And what if our collective strength is so much stronger than we could ever have imagined? Because I remember, in a not brain kind of way, but I remember a time where women were there for each other, where we weren't tired raising children, where we weren't tired being there for our elders, because this was the natural cycle of how it used to be, and this is how it's meant to be. I don't believe that grandparents should be taken away from grandchildren. I don't believe that they should be locked away in old age homes, not having access to children or their grandchildren. I really believe that the cycle of parents, children, grandparents is a cycle that needs to be reunited. And how we will achieve that is the other question, whether we will start projects of bringing grandparents together with small children again, because a lot of what I hear in my circle of friends, and I'm sure it's the same for you, is that mothers feel overwhelmed these days. And it's not fair on the children. The mothers can't help it because the system reality is like that for many of us. But I think one of the solutions is probably the missing piece, grandparents. Grandparents long for interaction with children, be it their own grandchildren or someone else's. They don't mind. Same with little children. They don't mind whose grandfather is that reads to them. And I feel this is something that the world needs to look and take seriously, because it will achieve so much healing in the circle of life. I remember, this is just like a small story from my own life, the time where I really longed to have a circle of women around me, not defining the specific woman that they should be, was when I was pregnant. And the more pregnant I got, the further along my pregnancy went, the more this need came. And then in the hour of birth, I honestly, and I didn't want to offend men that attend the birth of their children, but I honestly didn't feel that I needed a man around. I honestly felt that what would give me power now is to have women around me. And this is what was something so instinctual and intuitive that I couldn't even place my finger on it. But I feel that this is a need we all have. And this is something we've stopped listening to. And this is something that we don't even remember how it used to be done in early days. There are some indigenous cultures that still do that, where the mother is supported by a circle of women. But I think this is the way it's meant to be, not just because of physical external things, but because the strength that you get from so much feminine energy around actually improves the birthing process for the child and the mother. I really believe that, even though my the way my son was born wasn't like that. I didn't have many women around. I had two, my sister and the doctor that was present. But when my sister held my hand, I can tell you, I felt a totally different power than when my husband held my hand. When my husband held my hand, basically, I felt I needed to support him. When my sister held my hand, it physically took about 80% of my pain away. And I couldn't believe it.
That is so powerful.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Thanks for speaking that. It's
Mhm.
powerful.
That illuminates this notion of the collective field.
Yes.
Just having the energy in the space holding. And there is something about the physical. Of course, we can energetically tune into each other, but there is something because of these bodies, like the bodies vibrate to, like you were talking about the G string and, you know, just the entrainment of how being together in a sacred space. And I feel personally that I'd like to be together with women in a sacred space where we're actually talking about our shadows. We're talking about how we undercut each other unconsciously. We're talking about how we're jealous, or because that is where we lose all of our power. And I feel women have been conditioned to do that because of this external messaging that we're not enough. And that this power doesn't really reside in us and amplify when we're together. In fact, it feels like we've been somehow along the way taught that we have to hold this for ourselves. There's like a possession of it.